Have you ever thought that in a moment when you are ready to give up everything, a group of fearful eyes can ignite the fighting fire in you that has long been cold? What can four children bring in the midst of the storm? Join me on a journey to uncover this mystery. The Nevada sun beat down on my back like a branding iron, relentless, unforgiving. I drove the shovel into the cracked, thirsty earth, each thrust a prayer for release, each grunt a confession of my failures. The hole was getting deep now, 4 feet, maybe 5. Deep enough to swallow me whole, to bury the man I used to be. Elias Thornton, father, husband, rancher, those titles meant nothing anymore. They were ghosts, like the memories that haunted this forsaken patch of land I'd once called home. Ready for a story that'll break your heart and put it back together? Drop a heart emoji in the comments, hit subscribe, and stay till the end for a surprise that'll blow your mind. 3 months ago, my world ended. Not with a bang, not with some grand catastrophe, but with the sickening thud of a wagon wheel and the scream of my boy, Jacob, as it crushed the life out of him. My boy, my only boy, 10 years old, with his mother's bright eyes and a laugh that could make even the driest desert bloom. I can still see him, running through the sagebrush, chasing after a stray calf, his hat too big for his head, flopping over his ears. He'd been so full of life, so full of promise, and I failed him. I failed him the way only a father can, by not being there when he needed me most. I was supposed to be watching him that day. It was a simple trip to town, just me and Jacob, to pick up some feed for the cattle. He begged to drive the wagon, his small hands gripping the reins like he was born to it. I let him, God help me, I let him. I thought it'd make him feel grown, make him proud. I was checking the load in the back when the horses spooked, a rattlesnake maybe, or just the wind, doesn't matter. The wagon lurched and Jacob, my brave little man, couldn't hold the reins. I turned just in time to see him fall, to hear his scream cut short as the wheel rolled over him. The doctor said it was quick, that he didn't suffer. But what does a doctor know about suffering? Suffering is what's left behind. Suffering is me, standing here, digging my own grave because I can't bear to live with the weight of it. The shovel scraped against a rock, jarring my hands, and I cursed under my breath. My palms were blistered, raw, but the pain felt right, like penance. I deserved it. I deserved worse. Martha, my wife, she'd been gone 2 years now, taken by a fever that swept through the valley like a biblical plague. I'd held her hand as she slipped away, her breath shallow, her skin burning under my touch. I promised her I'd take care of Jacob, that I'd keep him safe. I swore it on her deathbed, my voice breaking as I kissed her forehead one last time. And now, here I was, a liar, a failure, a man who couldn't keep his promises to the 2 people who mattered most. The ranch was quiet now, too quiet. The cattle were gone, sold off after Jacob's accident. I couldn't stand to look at them, their dumb, unblinking eyes reminding me of the life I'd lost. The barn stood empty, its doors creaking in the wind. The house was worse, a tomb of memories I couldn't escape. Jacob's room was still there, untouched, like a shrine to my guilt. His whittled toys on the shelf, his slate with half-finished sums, his Sunday shirt hanging on a hook. I hadn't stepped foot in there since the accident. Couldn't. Every time I passed the door, I felt it. That crushing weight in my chest, like a boulder pressing down until I couldn't breathe. I stopped digging for a moment, leaning on the shovel, my breath ragged. The sky was turning, dark clouds rolling in from the west, heavy with the promise of a storm. Good. Let it come. Let it wash away whatever's left of me. The dirt under my boots was dry, cracked like my soul. This land had never been kind, but I'd fought for it, bled for it. Martha and I built this place from nothing, back when we were young and foolish enough to believe in dreams. We'd carved out a life here, raised Jacob here, loved each other here, and now it was all ash, all dust, just like me. I wiped the sweat from my brow, my hand trembling, my wedding band glinted in the fading light, a cruel reminder of promises broken. I should have taken it off after Martha died, but I couldn't. It was all I had left of her, that and Jacob, and now Jacob was gone too. I was alone. Truly alone for the first time in my life. No wife to hold me together, no son to give me purpose. Just me and this shovel, this hole, this final act of surrender. I'd thought about it for weeks, turning the idea over in my mind like a stone. At first, it was just a whisper, a fleeting thought in the dead of night when sleep wouldn't come. But it grew louder, stronger, until it was all I could hear. The world didn't need Elias Thornton anymore. The neighbors, they'd stopped coming by after the funeral. They'd brought casseroles and kind words at first, but I saw it in their eyes. Pity, mixed with relief that it wasn't their kid in the ground. They didn't know what to say, and I didn't want to hear it. I didn't want their prayers or their platitudes. I wanted my boy back. I wanted my life back. But that wasn't how the world worked, so here I was, digging. The hole was almost deep enough now, 6 feet, give or take. I'd measured it by eye the way I used to measure fence posts or troughs for the cattle. Funny how the skills of a rancher could be turned to something like this. I'd built cradles once, for Jacob, when he was a baby. I'd carved the wood myself, smoothed it until it was soft as a mother's touch. I'd built a life too, piece by piece, with Martha by my side. Now I was building my end, and it felt right, like coming full circle. The wind picked up, carrying the scent of rain and dust. It stung my eyes, or maybe that was the tears I wouldn't admit to. I didn't cry anymore. I'd used up all my tears in those first weeks, sobbing alone in the dark until my throat was raw. Now there was just this emptiness, this hollow ache that gnawed at me day and night. I tried to fill it with work, with whiskey, with prayers I didn't believe in. Nothing worked, nothing could. Jacob was gone, and I was the one who let it happen. I drove the shovel in again, harder this time, the blade biting into the earth. The sound was sharp, final, like the crack of a whip. I could almost hear Martha's voice, soft and steady, telling me to stop, to keep going, to live. But she wasn't here. She hadn't been here for 2 years, and I'd been carrying that loss like a stone in my pocket, heavy and constant. Jacob had been my reason to keep going after she died. He'd been my light, my purpose. Without him, what was I? A husk, a shadow, a man who'd failed his most sacred duty. I paused, my chest heaving, and looked out across the ranch. The horizon stretched wide, empty, the sagebrush swaying in the wind like mourners at a funeral. This land had been my home, my legacy. I'd thought I'd pass it to Jacob one day, teach him how to work the cattle, how to read the sky for rain, how to be a man. But that dream was dead now, buried under 6 feet of dirt in the town cemetery. I'd stood over his grave too many times, staring at the small wooden cross I'd carved myself, the letters of his name uneven because my hands wouldn't stop shaking. The first drops of rain fell, heavy and cold, splattering against my hat. I didn't move. Let it come. Let it soak me to the bone. Let it drown me if it wanted to. I'd be in that hole soon enough, out of reach of the storm, out of reach of everything. I wondered briefly what the neighbors would think when they found me. Poor Elias, they'd say. Lost his wife, then his boy. Lost his mind, too. They wouldn't be wrong. Grief had hollowed me out, left me brittle as old bone. But they wouldn't understand. They couldn't. They hadn't held their child's broken body, hadn't felt the life slip out of him while they begged God for one more chance. I drove the shovel in again, my arms burning, my heart pounding. The hole was deep enough now, I thought. Deep enough to hide me from the world, from the pain, from the endless parade of days I didn't want to face. I'd lie down in it, close my eyes, and let the dirt take me. No one would know until it was too late. No one would care. I'd be with Martha and Jacob again, somewhere beyond this hell, somewhere I didn't have to feel this anymore. The rain was coming harder now, turning the dirt to mud, making the shovel slip in my hands. I didn't care. I kept digging, each scoop a step closer to the end. I could see their faces, Martha's, soft and kind, Jacob's, bright and eager. They were waiting for me, I told myself. They'd forgive me for giving up, for not being strong enough to keep going. Wouldn't they? The thought made my chest tighten, made my breath catch. What if they didn't? What if they looked at me with disappointment, the way I looked at myself? I stopped, the shovel falling from my hands, and sank to my knees beside the hole. The rain poured down, soaking my shirt, my hair, my soul. I didn't know how to live without them. I didn't know how to wake up each morning and face a world that didn't have Jacob's laughter, Martha's warmth. I was tired, so damn tired, of carrying this weight. I just wanted it to stop. I wanted the pain to stop, the memories to stop, the guilt to stop tearing me apart. I looked into the hole, dark and deep, and felt a strange calm settle over me. This was it. This was the end. I'd made my choice, or maybe it had been made for me the moment that wagon wheel took my boy. I reached for the shovel again, ready to climb in, ready to let the earth claim me. But then, through the rain, through the haze of my grief, I saw something. shapes on the horizon, small and stumbling, moving toward the ranch with a desperate urgency that cut through the storm like a knife. The rain was coming down in sheets now, turning the Nevada dirt into a slick, unforgiving mud that clung to my boots. I stood there, shovel in hand, staring at the shapes moving toward my ranch through the storm. 4 small figures, stumbling, desperate, their outlines blurred by the rain and the heat waves rising from the desert floor. My heart, already battered, sank deeper into my chest. Why now? Why, when I was so close to ending it all, did the world have to throw something else at me? I didn't want this. I didn't want anyone. I just wanted the quiet, the dark, the peace of that hole I'd dug. But as they got closer, I saw them for what they were. Children. 4 of them, 3 girls and a boy, their clothes torn, their faces streaked with dirt and tears. The oldest, a girl with dark hair matted to her scalp, led the way, her steps purposeful despite the exhaustion etched into every line of her body. She couldn't have been more than 15, but her eyes carried the weight of someone much older. Behind her, a boy, maybe 12, clutched the hand of a smaller girl who looked ready to collapse. The youngest, a tiny thing with blonde curls, barely kept up, her bare feet bloody from the desert's cruel embrace. I dropped the shovel. It hit the mud with a wet thud, the sound swallowed by the storm. My hands trembled, not from the cold, not from the rain, but from the sudden gut-wrenching realization that these kids were running from something worse than death. I'd seen that look before, during the war, on the faces of men fleeing a losing battle. Fear, yes, but something more. Desperation, the kind that drives you to keep moving even when your body begs to stop. They were running toward my ranch, toward me, as if I was some kind of salvation. Me, Elias Thornton, a man who'd been digging his own grave not 10 minutes ago. The oldest girl reached my fence first, her hands gripping the splintered wood as she climbed over with a grace that spoke of necessity, not practice. The others followed, clumsy, faltering, but determined. Up close, they were worse off than I'd thought. Their lips were cracked, their eyes sunken from thirst. The boy's shirt was ripped at the shoulder, revealing a bruise that made my stomach churn. The smallest girl swayed, her knees buckling, and the older girl caught her just before she hit the ground. "Mister," the oldest said, her voice rough as sandpaper, "please, we need help." Her eyes flicked to the hole behind me, then back to my face, and I saw it. Recognition. She knew what I was doing, what I'd been about to do. There was no judgment in her gaze, only a plea, raw and urgent. "We've been walking since yesterday. We ain't got nowhere else to go." I wanted to turn away, to tell them to keep moving, to leave me to my misery. I wasn't their savior. I wasn't anyone's savior. I'd failed my own son, let him die under my watch. What could I do for these kids? But something in her voice, in the way she stood there, protecting the others like a mother hen, stopped me. It reminded me of Jacob, the way he'd stand up for the weaker calves, the way he'd try to fix things that were broken. My chest ached, a different kind of pain now, one that wasn't just about loss, but about something stirring, something I thought was long dead. "Where'd you come from?" I asked, my voice hoarse, barely audible over the rain. I didn't want to know, not really, but the words came out anyway. "Blackthorn," she said, spitting the word like it was poison. "The orphanage. But we ain't going back. Not ever." Blackthorn. I'd heard whispers about that place in town. Stories that made your skin crawl. Kids worked to the bone, beaten for looking at someone wrong. Fed scraps that wouldn't keep a dog alive. Folks in town turned a blind eye, same as they always did when it came to things that were easier ignored. I'd never paid much mind to it before. I had my own problems, my own grief. But now, standing here with these kids staring at me like I was their last hope, I felt the weight of it all. Their pain, their fear, and my own cowardice for thinking I could just check out and leave the world to its cruelty. The smallest girl whimpered, her tiny body shaking in the older girl's arms. "Hannah," she whispered, her voice so faint I barely heard it. "I'm scared." Hannah, that was the older girl's name, I guessed, knelt down, brushing the blonde curls from the little one's face. "It's okay, Lily. We're safe now, right, mister?" She looked up at me, her eyes daring me to contradict her, daring me to let them down. Safe. The word hit me like a punch. My ranch wasn't safe. It was a graveyard, a place where hope came to die. But these kids, they didn't know that. They saw a fence, a house, a man with a shovel, and they thought it meant shelter. They thought it meant protection. I looked at the hole I dug, the mud pooling at the bottom, and felt a wave of shame so sharp it nearly knocked me over. I'd been ready to abandon everything, to leave this world behind, and here were 4 kids fighting for their lives with everything they had. "What's chasing you?" I asked, though I already knew the answer wasn't going to be good. Hannah's jaw tightened. "Amos Kane, the man who runs Blackthorn. He's coming for us. We got a head start when he went to town for supplies, but he'll be back soon, and he don't let nobody leave." The boy, who'd been silent until now, spoke up, his voice cracking. "He's got men with him. They got guns." His eyes were wide, haunted, and I saw the bruise on his shoulder again, darker now in the dim light. I looked at them. Hannah, fierce and defiant. The boy trying to be brave. The other girl, quiet but clinging to Lily. And Lily herself, so small she seemed like she'd break in the wind. They were dying out here, right in front of me, dehydrated, exhausted, scared out of their minds. And I had a choice to make. I could send them away, let them face whatever was coming on their own, and finish what I'd started. Or I could do something else, something I hadn't done since Jacob died. Try. The rain was pounding now, the storm closing in. Thunder rumbled, low and menacing, like a warning. I looked at the hole again, then back at the kids. "Follow me," I said, turning toward the house. "Inside, now." They didn't hesitate. Hannah scooped up Lily, the boy helped the other girl, and they followed me through the mud, their steps unsteady but determined. I didn't know what I was doing, not really. I didn't know if I could help them, if I was even capable of it. But as I led them toward the house, something shifted inside me, a spark of something I thought I'd lost forever. For the first time in 3 months, I wasn't thinking about the grave I'd dug. I was thinking about the kids who needed me to keep them alive. The house was dark, the air thick with dust and neglect. I hadn't bothered cleaning since Martha died, hadn't seen the point. The kids shuffled in behind me, their footsteps soft but heavy with fear. I laid Lily on the kitchen table, her small body burning with fever, her breathing shallow. Hannah hovered close, her hands trembling as she brushed the girl's curls from her face. The boy, his name was Caleb I'd learned, stood by the door, his eyes darting to the windows, watching for shadows in the storm. The other girl, Sarah, stayed quiet, her arms wrapped around herself like she was holding her own pieces together. Can Elias save these kids, or will his past break him? Hit that like button if you're rooting for him, and don't stop now. A jaw-dropping twist is coming. "Water," I said, more to myself than to them, and moved to the pump in the corner. The handle creaked as I worked it, the sound loud in the silent house. I filled a tin cup and handed it to Hannah, who helped Lily sip. Her movements careful, almost reverent. The others drank too, their cracked lips parting with a gratitude that made my throat tighten. They were so fragile, so broken, and yet they'd made it this far. They'd fought to survive, something I'd given up on. "What's your story?" I asked, keeping my voice low, like I was afraid to break the spell of their trust. "Why'd you run?" Hannah looked at me, her eyes hard but honest. "Blackthorn ain't a home, it's a prison. Amos Kane, he takes the territory's money to care for us, but all he cares about is work. We scrub floors, mend clothes, tend his fields. If we're slow, we get the strap. If we talk back, we get worse. Lily got sick and he wouldn't call a doctor. Said she'd either get better or she wouldn't. We couldn't stay." Caleb nodded, his voice barely above a whisper. "He locked us in at night. Said it was for our own good, but we heard him talking, him and his men. They were planning to send some of us away to places we'd never come back from." I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the rain-soaked clothes clinging to my skin. I'd heard rumors about places like Blackthorn, about men like Amos Kane who treated kids like cattle, selling them off when they got too old or too troublesome. I'd never paid attention before. It was easier to look away, to focus on my own pain. But now, with these kids in my kitchen, their fear filling the air like smoke, I couldn't ignore it anymore. Thunder cracked outside, rattling the windows. The storm was on us now, a beast of wind and lightning that made the house feel like a ship in a hurricane. I glanced out the window, half expecting to see Kane and his men already riding up. "How far behind are they?" I asked. Hannah's face went pale. "Half a day, maybe less. We left when they went to town, but they'll know we're gone by now. They'll come looking." I nodded, my mind racing. I wasn't a fighter, not anymore, pray. I'd spent enough time on this land to know it wasn't safe to stand alone against men like that. I looked at the kids, at their wide, hopeful eyes, and felt that same ache in my chest, the one that reminded me of Jacob. These kids were counting on me, trusting me to keep them safe, and I didn't know if I could. I'd failed before, failed the one person who mattered most. What made me think I could do this now? But then I heard it. Hoofbeats, faint but growing louder, cutting through the storm's roar. I moved to the window, peering through the rain-streaked glass. 6 men on horseback, their figures dark against the lightning-lit sky, riding with the grim purpose of hunters. My blood ran cold. Amos Kane. He was here, and he wasn't alone. Hannah shot to her feet, her face white as bone. "We have to run," she said, her voice shaking. "We have to." I gestured to the window where lightning split the sky. "You won't make it 10 yards in this storm. You'll die out there." Caleb started to shake, and Sarah pulled Lily closer, her small body trembling. I thought fast. "There's a storm cellar out back, through the pantry. You can hide there." Hannah looked at me, her eyes searching, questioning. "What about you?" I met her gaze, saw the fear, the hope, the weight of a girl who'd been forced to grow up too fast. She reminded me so much of Jacob, of his courage, his heart. I thought of him, of how I'd failed him, and I made a choice. "I'll handle Kane." The hoofbeats grew louder, splashing through the mud. I helped the kids into the cellar, a cramped, musty space that smelled of earth and old wood. Lily was barely conscious, leaning on Sarah for support. "Stay quiet," I told them. "No matter what you hear, don't come out until I come for you. Understand?" Hannah nodded, but her eyes held a question that cut me deep. She was wondering if I'd betray them, if I'd trade their safety for my own. The fact that she had to wonder, that trust had been beaten out of her by men like Kane, made my anger burn hotter than it had in years. Heavy boots hit my porch, the sound like a death knell. I closed the cellar door, dragged a sack of potatoes over it, and positioned myself in the kitchen doorway. Someone pounded on the front door hard enough to shake the frame. "Open up, Thornton," a voice growled, rough and mean. Amos Kane. I opened the door slowly, keeping my face blank. Kane stood there, water streaming from his hat, his eyes cold as a snake's. Behind him, 5 men, armed and dripping with malice, crowded the porch. "We're tracking 4 runaway kids," Kane said. "Seen them?" I leaned against the door frame, blocking his view. "Haven't seen anyone. Been out back all day." Kane's eyes narrowed. "Mind if we look around? For your own safety. They're dangerous." I almost laughed at the lie. 4 starving kids, dangerous. But I kept my face still. "Actually, I do mind. This is my land." One of Kane's men shifted, his hand inching toward his gun. The air grew thick, tense. Kane stepped closer, his voice low. "Those kids are my responsibility. The territory pays me to keep them in line. When they run, it makes me look bad." "Funny," I said, my voice dry as the desert. "I think beating kids makes you look worse." Kane's face darkened, but I didn't back down. I was alone, outnumbered, but something inside me was waking up, something I thought had died with Jacob. I wasn't going to let these kids down, not this time. The tension in the house was a living thing, coiling around us like a rattlesnake ready to strike. Amos Kane and his men stood on my porch, their eyes glinting with a mix of greed and cruelty. The storm raged outside, lightning flashing, thunder shaking the walls. I stood in the doorway, my heart pounding but my resolve hardening. These kids, Hannah, Caleb, Sarah, Lily, they weren't just strangers anymore. They were mine to protect, mine to save. I'd failed Jacob, but I wouldn't fail them. Not if I could help it. Kane's voice cut through the storm's roar. "You're making a mistake, Thornton. Step aside or this gets ugly." I didn't move. "Come in then," I said, stepping back, opening the door wide. "Search all you want, but I'll be writing to the territorial governor tomorrow about how you lost 4 kids under your care." Kane froze, his eyes narrowing. "What's that supposed to mean?" I let the words hang, sharp and heavy. "If those kids are so dangerous you need armed men to hunt them, why weren't you watching them closer? And if they're not dangerous, why are they running?" The other men shifted, uneasy. They were here for a paycheck, not a fight with the law. Kane's face twisted, but he pushed past me, his boots leaving muddy tracks on Martha's clean floors. "Search the house," he barked. "Every room, every corner." They tore through my home like wolves, overturning chairs, ripping through Jacob's room, scattering his toys across the floor. Each violation fueled my anger, but I stayed calm, watching, waiting. They were in the kitchen now, close to the cellar door, hidden under the potato sack. My heart pounded, but I kept my face stone cold. Then it happened. A cough, soft but unmistakable from beneath the floor. Lily. Her fever was worsening, and that small sound was enough to draw Kane's attention. His head snapped up, his smile cruel as he kicked the sack aside, revealing the cellar door. "Well, well," he said, his voice dripping with triumph. "What do we have here?" My hand moved to the knife on my belt, but I was 1 against 6. Even if I took Kane down, the others would finish me, and the kids would still be his. "Open it," he ordered. I didn't move. "You said search the house. That's not the house." "Don't play games with me," Kane snarled. But before he could finish, the cellar door creaked open. Hannah's head appeared, her face set with a defiance that reminded me so much of Jacob it hurt. "We're here," she said, her voice steady. "Don't hurt him. This ain't his fight." The kids climbed out, huddling together, scared but unbroken. Lily was barely standing, supported by Sarah. Caleb's fists were clenched, ready to fight despite his fear. Kane laughed, a sound like gravel underfoot. "Thought you could outsmart me, did you? Tie 'em up. We're taking them back." "No," I said, the word hard as iron. "Not while I'm here." Kane turned, mock surprise on his face. "And who's gonna stop me? You?" I didn't answer with words. I dove for the kitchen counter, grabbing the cast iron skillet still warm from breakfast. I swung it at the nearest oil lamp, shattering it, plunging the room into shadow. "Run!" I shouted to the kids. Chaos erupted. Kane's men cursed, stumbling in the dark. A gun went off, the bullet splintering wood above us. I tackled Kane, driving him into the table, but the kids were still in danger. Caleb tried to dart past, but one of Kane's men grabbed him, twisting his arm. Sarah screamed as another man caught her hair. I fought harder, my fists connecting with Kane's jaw, but it wasn't enough. Then the front door burst open. A figure stepped through, water streaming from his coat. A man I recognized. Judge Harlan Reed, not a sheriff but a man with authority, flanked by 3 townsfolk armed with rifles. "Drop your weapons," Reed's voice boomed, filling the room with a presence that stopped the fight cold. Kane tried to bluster. "These kids are my responsibility." "Your responsibility?" Reed cut him off, his eyes hard. "Judge Henderson's been hearing complaints about Blackthorn for months. Territory's sending inspectors next week. You want to explain why 4 kids ran barefoot through a storm to escape you?" Kane's face went white. His men hesitated, looking to him for orders. But the tide had turned. Reed's men moved in, disarming them one by one. I helped the kids back to their feet, Hannah's eyes meeting mine, a flicker of hope replacing the fear. For the first time, I felt like I'd done something right. 3 weeks later, the storm was a memory, but the change it brought was permanent. I stood in my kitchen, watching Hannah teach Lily how to knead dough for biscuits. Caleb was at the table, helping Sarah with her reading, his voice patient as he sounded out words. The house, once a tomb, was alive again, filled with laughter, with purpose, with life. The grave I dug that stormy morning was gone, filled in and covered with green grass, a quiet reminder of how close I'd come to losing everything. The territorial investigation shut down Blackthorn for good. Amos Kane was in jail, facing charges that would keep him there for years. His men scattered, some turning witness to save themselves. The other kids from Blackthorn were sent to proper homes, places where they'd be cared for, not broken. But these 4, Hannah, Caleb, Sarah, Lily, they stayed with me. They chose me, and I chose them. We were a family now, bound not by blood but by something stronger. Survival, trust, and a shared second chance. I'd applied for temporary guardianship with Judge Reed's help. The paperwork was a hassle, but every time I saw Lily's smile or heard Caleb's laugh, it was worth it. The ranch was different now. I'd started rebuilding, bringing in a few head of cattle, fixing the barn, cleaning the house. Martha's sewing chair wasn't empty anymore. Hannah used it to mend clothes, her stitches neat and sure. Jacob's room was still there, but I could walk in now without feeling like I was drowning. His toys were on the shelf, but they weren't relics of pain anymore. They were reminders of love, of a boy who'd want me to keep going. The kids were healing, too. Lily's fever was gone, her cheeks pink with health. She followed me around the ranch, asking questions about the horses, her curiosity endless. Sarah was quiet, but she'd started singing to herself when she thought no one was listening, her voice soft and sweet. Caleb was finding his strength, helping me mend fences, his hands steady despite the bruises that were fading. Hannah, though, she was the heart of it all. She was still the protector, making sure the others ate, slept, laughed. But she was a kid, too. And I caught her smiling sometimes, a real smile, not the guarded one she'd worn when we met. One morning, I stood outside, watching the sun rise over the ranch. The air was cool, the sky clear, the desert stretching out like a promise. I thought about that day, about the hole I'd dug, about how close I'd come to giving up. I thought about Martha, about Jacob, about the life we'd built and lost. And I thought about these kids, these 4 souls who'd stumbled into my world and changed it forever. I wasn't the man I'd been 3 months ago. That man was gone, buried in that filled-in grave, replaced by someone who remembered what he was fighting for. I'd failed Jacob, but I wouldn't fail these kids. I'd protect them, teach them, love them. They'd given me a reason to live, and I'd give them a home, a family, a chance at the childhood they deserved. As I walked back inside, Hannah looked up from the dough, her eyes bright. "Breakfast's almost ready, Elias," she said, and I smiled, really smiled, for the first time in years. The ranch wasn't a graveyard anymore. It was a home, and I was home too. That ending hit hard, didn't it? Smash that like button if you're inspired, and don't miss the next tale. Click the video on screen for a twist you'll never forget.